Buckle up for the ultimate adrenaline rush as we reveal the most shocking military secrets you've never heard, like the largest base ever built, a firefighter that defied physics, and air support dropped in just 45 minutes. Dive into the chaos of the Pacific War, where soldiers fought for 45 minutes with no reinforcements, and witness history's most relentless battles you won't believe actually happened.
13 tons of water in just 12 seconds. This is the bereaved B-200, the world's largest amphibious aircraft, and it's built to fight wildfires like no other. Designed in Russia, the B-200 can land on water, refill in just 30 seconds, and take off again, faster than most planes can even land. It carries 1,200 gallons of water or fire retardant, enough to douse an entire football field. And it flies at speeds up to 250 miles per hour, fast enough to keep up with spreading flames. In the time it takes most planes to take off and land once, the B-200 can make 5 full water drops. And scientists still can't explain how it handles the heat, but it keeps flying, fast, fearless, and full of fire. What if a tank could swim, and actually cross an entire ocean? Meet the M4A3 Duplex Drive, the world's largest amphibious tank ever built. Weighing 32,000 pounds, it was a floating fortress built for war. It could swim at 6 miles per hour, powered by propellers built into its tracks. On D-Day, it traveled over a mile through the English Channel to land troops on Omaha Beach. Only 20 of these tanks saw combat, and they were so advanced, they were kept secret for years after the war. Imagine a machine that could cross oceans, and only 20 ever did. Beneath a remote mountain lies a military base so massive, it's larger than 300 football fields. Built during the Cold War in just 3 years, this secret facility was designed to survive a 20-megaton nuclear blast. The base spans over 20 million square feet, that's more space than the Pentagon, the White House, and the Capitol combined. It houses over 20,000 personnel, complete with a hospital, school, and even a chapel, all deep underground. The entire base is hidden beneath a single mountain, and it was built in record time during the height of the Cold War. And here's the mind-blowing part, the base was built in secret, with only a few hundred workers, and it's still operational today. Smash like if this blew your mind. What other secrets are buried beneath our feet? 15,000 Allied soldiers held off 100,000 Japanese troops for nearly 4 months, with no air support. This was the Battle of Bataan in 1942, a desperate stand by Filipino and American forces to stop the Japanese advance in the Pacific. With only 20,000 rifles and no tanks or aircraft, they faced an enemy 10 times their size. Over 99 days, they fought through 34 brutal battles across 75 miles of jungle. More than 7,000 soldiers died from starvation and disease, even before surrender. The infamous Bataan Death March claimed 10,000 lives, but it delayed the Japanese advance for 6 crucial weeks. One small force. One impossible mission. And a legacy that changed the course of the war. 2 Japanese aircraft carriers were destroyed in just 45 minutes, during a single battle in 1942. The Battle of Cape Esperance took place on October 10, 1942, in the Solomon Sea. The U.S. Navy launched a surprise attack that would change the course of the war in the Pacific. In under an hour, the carriers Junyo and Hiryu were both crippled and set ablaze, with only 32 of Junyo's 2,000 crew surviving. The battle shifted the balance of carrier power in the Pacific, and nearly vanished from Japanese records for years. It was so decisive that it's considered the first true carrier versus carrier battle of the war, and it was almost erased from history. And it all happened in less than an hour, a battle that changed the Pacific forever. Did you know a single battle sank more ships than any other in World War II? From August to February 1942, the Allies and Japanese clashed over a single island in the Solomon Sea. The Battle of Guadalcanal raged for 26 weeks, a brutal 6-month war unlike any other in the Pacific. Over 21,000 soldiers died, and 18 warships were sunk in the surrounding waters. That's more than any other battle in the entire war, a staggering loss on both sides. But here's the twist, this battle marked the first time the Allies pushed the Japanese back, turning the tide of the entire Pacific War. And scientists still can't explain why it took 6 months, but it changed history forever. What if a battle lasted 6 months and involved over 200 ships? In 1942, the Battle of Guadalcanal raged for 21 weeks straight, the longest continuous naval battle of World War II. Over 200 Allied and Japanese ships were locked in a brutal struggle for control of this tiny island in the Solomon Sea. 76,000 troops were deployed across the island, and the battle claimed nearly 30,000 lives in total. The Allies only won after sinking 24 Japanese warships, including the first carrier ever sunk by a submarine in the Pacific. And scientists still can't explain how the Allies managed to sink so many ships without a single major land battle. Smash like if this blew your mind. Which military fact should we cover next? Comment below. For 21 weeks, U.S. Marines held Guadalcanal, alone, against 10,000 Japanese soldiers in the jungle. It was August 1942. The Allies had just landed on Guadalcanal, and the Japanese were determined to push them out. With no reinforcements coming, the Marines had to fight daily in the sweltering heat, and the jungle was their worst enemy. Disease and starvation killed more men than bullets. Rations ran out. The only food left was their own horses. And in one of the darkest moments, they had to eat one of their own, a Marine who had died of disease. Despite it all, the Marines held the island, and changed the course of the war in the Pacific. And scientists still can't explain how they kept their sanity, in the jungle, alone, for 6 months. Nazi Germany was pushed back only once on the entire Eastern Front, and it changed the course of World War II. It happened in November 1942, in the Battle of Rostov, a 21-day clash that stunned the Third Reich. German forces were pushed back 20 miles, the only time Nazi troops were driven from occupied territory on the Eastern Front. The battle cost Germany over 12,000 men, a devastating loss in a war they thought was already won. The Soviet advance was so unexpected that Hitler ordered the retreat to be erased from official records. This single battle marked the beginning of the end, and it's still studied by military historians today. One battle. One retreat. One turning point, and it changed the war forever. "18 Japanese warships vanished in just 24 hours, and the Allies lost only 2 planes. It was April 4, 1942, and the Japanese were moving 3,000 troops to New Guinea. But Allied reconnaissance planes spotted the fleet from 20,000 feet above the Bismarck Sea. Bombers and fighters descended with precision, sinking 6 transports and 12 destroyers in a single day. The kill ratio? 17 Japanese ships for every 1 Allied plane, a staggering achievement. And the Japanese lost over 3,000 troops, more than the entire U.S. Marine Corps lost in Guadalcanal. One day. One battle. A war changed forever, and history forgot it. What if Japan had landed 200,000 troops on Midway, with 11 carriers? In 1942, Japan devised Operation FS, a secret plan to invade Midway Island. The plan called for 11 aircraft carriers, more than double the number used at Pearl Harbor. They intended to land 20,000 troops, over 10 times the island's population. The invasion force would have included over 200,000 soldiers, sailors, and marines. The plan included building a full-scale airfield, enough to hold off the entire U.S. Pacific Fleet. And scientists still can't explain why the U.S. didn't face this invasion, it was that close. In 1942, a Soviet T-34 tank took a direct hit from a 75mm artillery shell, and kept fighting. The T-34 was the backbone of the Red Army during World War II, and for good reason. Weighing in at 47.6 tons, its steel hull was a breakthrough in tank design. It could survive a 75mm shell impact at close range, without catastrophic failure. No other tank of its time could match that level of durability, not the German Panzer IV, not the American M4 Sherman. And here's what really stunned the enemy: many T-34s kept fighting after being hit. This unstoppable machine helped turn the tide of the war, and it didn't even need to fire a shot to win. What if a ship weighed more than 30,000 elephants, and never fired a shot in battle? In 1943, Japan launched the Yamato, the heaviest battleship ever built, weighing 90,000 tons. It was twice the size of most battleships, a floating fortress designed to dominate the Pacific. Its armor was 22 inches thick, stronger than any other warship in history. The Yamato carried 9 16-inch guns, each shell weighed 1,500 pounds. But despite its firepower, it only fired in minor engagements, and never faced a major enemy fleet. A symbol of power, but a ship that was too big, too late, and never lived up to its legend. Smash like if this blew your mind. Which military fact should we cover next? Comment below. In 1943, Japan launched 10,000 paper bombs from the sky, toward the United States. These were no ordinary bombs, they were part of Japan's secret Fugo balloon weapon program during World War II. Each balloon carried a 5-pound explosive and incendiary devices designed to start massive forest fires. The balloons traveled over 5,000 miles using high-altitude winds, faster than any plane of the time. One of these bombs landed in Oregon and sparked a fire that burned over 20,000 acres. And yet, no American was ever killed by a Fugo balloon bomb, a shocking twist in a deadly war. Smash like if this blew your mind. Which military fact should we cover next? Comment below. In 1943, a Japanese submarine launched a plane to bomb the U.S. mainland, and it worked. The I-25 traveled over 6,000 miles from Japan to the west coast, a mission never attempted before. It carried a single floatplane, a modified bomber designed to strike American soil. On June 21, 1942, the plane dropped a 25-pound incendiary bomb on Oregon. The bomb sparked a forest fire but caused no injuries, a terrifying but silent attack. This was the only time in history a submarine-launched aircraft attacked the continental U.S. during wartime. And scientists still can't explain how the crew navigated so precisely, with no GPS. What if a war machine could run for 1,000 miles straight through battle, without a single breakdown? In 1943, a single T-34 tank covered over 1,000 kilometers of frontline combat, in just weeks. It operated in temperatures as low as 20 degrees below zero, and never once failed. This single tank outlasted 20 enemy vehicles in the same time frame, all while under constant fire. What's even more incredible? It never needed a major engine overhaul. The crew only changed the oil, and kept it running for months straight. And to this day, engineers still marvel at how it never broke down, even under impossible conditions. A single Soviet T-34 tank once stopped an entire German division of 2,000 troops and 30 tanks in its tracks. This happened during the Second Battle of Kharkov in March 1943, in the village of Novotroitskoye. The T-34 was armed with an 85mm high-velocity gun, one of the most powerful in its class. For 12 long hours, this one tank held the line against overwhelming odds. The German division had 30 tanks and 2,000 troops, yet they couldn't break through. The tank was commanded by Lieutenant Alexander Kovalenko, who later became a hero of the Soviet Union. One man. One tank. 12 hours. And an entire German division was stopped cold.